Zoe stepped out of the taxi onto the bustling streets of Seoul, the city alive with neon lights and the hum of traffic. Her heart raced, not just from the jet lag, but from the excitement of being in a place so different from her hometown in America. She clutched her notebook and phone, eager to explore the city before her meeting later that afternoon. She wandered into a quaint, tucked-away cafe, the kind of place where the aroma of roasted coffee mingled with the soft sound of jazz. Zoe breathed in, letting herself relax for the first time since landing. She had always loved discovering hidden gems in foreign cities, and something about this one made her feel like she could stay forever. As she stepped inside, she nearly collided with a man carrying a tray of drinks. "I'm so sorry," Zoe exclaimed, stepping back. "No, it's my fault," he said smoothly, his voice low and calm. Zoe looked up, and her breath caught. The man was stunning tall, impeccably dressed in a navy blazer and crisp white shirt, his dark hair slightly tousled, and eyes that seemed to see more than she was willing to reveal. "I didn't see you there," he added, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "I'm Zoe," she said, holding out her hand almost instinctively. "Min-Ho," he replied, taking her hand briefly. The touch was electric, brief, but it sent a shiver down her spine. For a moment, neither spoke, as if the city around them had fallen away. The soft clink of cups and murmur of other patrons faded, leaving only the quiet, intense connection between them. "You're visiting?" Min-Ho finally asked, his gaze curious but cautious. "Yes, for work," Zoe replied, feeling the heat rise to her cheeks. "Just trying to explore a little before my meeting. I can recommend a few places," he said, his smile widening, but there was something guarded in his expression, as if he was holding something back. Zoe noticed but didn't press. They exchanged a few more words about coffee, the city, and favorite local spots, and with each sentence the tension between them grew. Zoe felt a pull she hadn't felt in years, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. But beneath Min-Ho's charm was a shadow Zoe couldn't see. He carried responsibilities she could never imagine. Family expectations, societal pressure, and secrets that could make even this innocent encounter dangerous. A part of him longed to step closer to Zoe, yet another part warned him to stay distant. As Zoe left the cafe, she glanced back. Min-Ho was standing by the counter, his eyes following her, an unreadable expression on his face. She didn't know it yet, but this brief meeting would change everything. And just like that, their worlds collided. Two people from completely different lives, brought together by chance, curiosity, and a spark neither could ignore. The next evening, Zoe found herself wandering through Seoul's vibrant Insadong district, searching for inspiration before her presentation. She stopped in front of a modern art gallery whose glass walls glowed with soft golden light. Curiosity pulled her inside. The gallery was quiet, filled with soft instrumental music and large abstract paintings, splashes of color that felt alive. Zoe moved slowly from piece to piece, soaking in the beauty. She loved art, especially the kind that made her feel something deeply. She stopped in front of a painting of two silhouettes standing apart, separated by a burst of red. She stared at it, trying to decode the emotion behind the artwork. "You see the distance first?" a familiar voice said behind her. "But most people miss the connection." Zoe froze. She turned, and there he was, Min-Ho. Her heart skipped. He stood dressed in a black coat, hands in pockets, looking effortlessly elegant. His eyes had that same deep, unreadable softness from the cafe. "Min-Ho?" she said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "I didn't expect to see you again," he said, stepping closer. His eyes warmed despite the reserved tone in his voice. "Neither did I," she admitted, a smile tugging at her lips. The air between them crackled the moment they made eye contact. It was the same spark from the cafe, stronger now that they had stumbled upon each other again, thousands of miles from Zoe's home. Fate felt like it was playing games. "You like art?" Min-Ho asked, nodding toward the painting. "Love it," Zoe replied. "This one feels personal." Min-Ho turned back to it, his profile sharp under the gallery lights. It's about two people who want to reach each other, he explained softly. But the world pushes them apart. Zoe blinked. Wow, she whispered. That sounded incredibly deep. He laughed gently. Just what I see. They walked together through the gallery, stopping at each piece. Their conversations flowed easily, about culture, travel, music, dreams. Zoe found herself laughing more than she had in months. Min-Ho listened in a way that made her feel fully seen. Yet beneath his calm charm, she sensed restraint, like he was constantly weighing his words. At one point, Zoe mentioned dating in America, joking about her past relationships. Min-Ho's expression shifted, his smile fading just slightly. In Korea, he said carefully, things are different, more traditional. Dating can be complicated. How complicated? Zoe asked. He hesitated. Families matter. Reputation matters. People talk. Sometimes, he looked away, troubled. It's not simple. Zoe realized then how different their worlds truly were. She was bold, outspoken, unafraid to challenge norms. Min-Ho, on the other hand, moved with caution, like each choice had unseen consequences. Still, the chemistry between them burned unmistakably. As they stood in front of a sculpture of intertwined figures, one of Min-Ho's co-workers entered the gallery. Her eyes widened the moment she saw them. Zoe and Min-Ho standing close, heads tilted in conversation. She whispered something into her friend's ear before they both walked past, glancing back repeatedly. Zoe noticed. Friends of yours? She asked. Colleagues, Min-Ho muttered, his jaw tightening. They'll talk. Zoe raised an eyebrow. Let them. We're just talking. You don't understand, Min-Ho said, lowering his voice. Here, things spread fast. People assume. They misunderstand. For the first time, Zoe felt a chill of reality creep into the warmth of their moment. Oh, she said softly, stepping back just a little. I don't want to complicate things for you. Min-Ho looked at her then, a look that held more emotion than he could safely express. You're not the complication, he said. Everything else is. Before she could respond, the gallery lights dimmed slightly, closing time. Zoe walked toward the exit, Min-Ho following beside her. At the door, they paused, the air thick with unspoken words. I enjoyed this, she murmured. So did I, he replied, his voice low. They stepped outside into the cool night, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. Maybe we'll meet again, Zoe said shyly. Min-Ho gave her a slow, conflicted smile. Maybe, but as she walked away, she felt his eyes on her. Watching, waiting, wanting something he wasn't sure he was allowed to have. And as Min-Ho stood alone outside the gallery, he whispered something she couldn't hear. I hope we do. Their spark was undeniable. But sparks can ignite and burn. Zoe's phone buzzed late one evening with a message she wasn't expecting. Dinner tonight? Just the two of us. Min-Ho. Her heart raced. She hesitated for a moment, thinking of the last encounter at the gallery. The whispered tension, the sparks between them. But curiosity and excitement won. She typed a quick yes and left work early, the Seoul night air buzzing with neon and possibility. Min-Ho was waiting at a discreet, upscale restaurant tucked away in a quiet alley. Soft lanterns lit the entrance, casting a warm glow on his carefully tailored suit. The moment Zoe arrived, he smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that made her stomach flutter. They were seated at a small table in the corner, the kind of place that felt private, intimate. For a moment, they simply studied each other across the flickering candlelight, savoring the quiet before the conversation began. So, Min-Ho said, swirling his wine, you've seen a little of my life, but there's more complicated things. His voice was calm, but Zoe could hear the weight behind it. What kind of complicated? She asked, leaning in, curiosity brimming. He took a breath, his eyes momentarily distant. Family matters. My career, my reputation. My parents expect certain things of me, things I can't ignore. Zoe studied him, noting the flicker of conflict in his gaze. He exuded warmth, charm, and a natural kindness. But beneath it all was a burden she couldn't fully grasp. "I get that," she said softly. "But you're not alone in this. You don't have to carry it by yourself." For a brief moment, Min-Ho's shoulders relaxed, and she saw the man behind the polish and restraint. The man who wanted freedom, love, and connection, but had rules that tethered him. They laughed and talked, sharing stories of childhood, favorite music, and dreams. Each word drew them closer, but the tension of secrecy lingered like a shadow over the candlelight. Then, as they rose to leave, a familiar voice called from the entrance. One of Min-Ho's co-workers, Jae-young, a tall, elegant woman with a sharp smile, walked toward them. Her eyes lingered on Min-Ho in a way that made Zoe's stomach twist. "Min-Ho, you didn't tell me you'd be here," Jae-young said, her tone light but flirtatious. Min-Ho's smile was polite but distant. "Just a private dinner tonight," he said calmly. Zoe could feel the heat rising in her chest. Something in Jae-young's gaze was pointed, as if testing the boundaries. Zoe wanted to pull away, to shield herself, but Min-Ho reached out and lightly touched her hand under the table. The simple gesture was grounding, a silent reassurance. As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Zoe whispered, "That was awkward." Min-Ho nodded, his jaw tight. "People talk. They assume things. That's part of the world I live in." "I don't care what they assume," Zoe said fiercely, looking up at him. "I care about us." Min-Ho's eyes softened, but the shadow of doubt lingered. "It's not that simple, Zoe. There are things you don't see. Things I can't explain yet." The night air carried a tension that was equal parts thrilling and dangerous. Every glance, every touch between them now felt like walking on the edge of a precipice. Their connection was undeniable, but the outside world, expectations, family, colleagues, loomed over them like a storm cloud. As Zoe walked back to her apartment that night, her mind replayed every detail: the laughter, the subtle touches, the fleeting warmth, and the shadow of complications. She knew one thing for certain. Her life had irrevocably changed, and with Min-Ho, every moment was both exhilarating and fragile. And somewhere across the city, Min-Ho stood on his balcony, staring at the lights of Seoul, thinking the same thing. This love is worth the risk, but can we survive the shadows that follow us? The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Min-Ho's family home, painting the living room in muted gold. Min-Ho sat rigidly on the leather sofa, hands clasped together, staring at the polished wooden floor. His mother, elegant and formidable, paced slowly in front of him, her eyes sharp and piercing. His father remained seated, silent, but his gaze carried the weight of unspoken expectations, a silent storm waiting to erupt. "Min-Ho," his mother began, her voice smooth but firm. "We've heard rumors. Is it true? Are you seeing someone?" Min-Ho swallowed hard. The careful walls he had built around his private life trembled. "Mother, father, it's complicated." "Complicated?" His father's voice was low, dangerous. "A foreign woman, Min-Ho? Do you realize what this could do to our family's name? Our reputation?" Min-Ho felt the air tighten around him. Every choice he had ever made to honor his family's expectations now collided with his heart's desire. "I care for her," he said cautiously. "Her name is Zoe. She's extraordinary." "Extraordinary?" his mother repeated, disbelief lacing her tone. "Min-Ho, this is not about extraordinary. This is about propriety, family legacy, and what people will think. You cannot jeopardize everything for a fleeting infatuation."
Min-Ho's chest tightened.
He wanted to scream, to tell them that Zoe was more than infatuation, more than a passing fancy. But his voice caught in his throat. He had spent years being the obedient son, the son who never disappointed, the son who followed rules. Yet now, with Zoe, rules felt meaningless. Across the ocean, Zoe waited for Min-Ho at a quiet cafe, her phone in hand. When he called, she could hear the tension in his voice, even over the line. "They know," he said simply, his words heavy with emotion. Zoe's stomach dropped. "Know what?" "That I'm seeing you," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. They're not happy. They think this could ruin everything for me. For us. A chill ran down Zoe's spine. This was the first time she truly felt the risk of their love, the reality that it could cost them everything.
Min-Ho.
I don't care about their opinions. I care about you. I care about you too, he said, his voice breaking slightly. But I also care about my family, about what could happen if I defy them. That evening, Min-Ho returned home to the sharp scrutiny of his parents. His mother had laid out photographs of Zoe, candid shots Min-Ho hadn't realized had circulated online. Do you see? She asked, her tone icy. People are already talking. Gossip spreads quickly. You must end this, Min-Ho. For your future. I can't, he said firmly, though his heart raced. Zoe is important to me. I won't give her up. His father leaned forward, his gaze like steel. Then you must be careful. Keep it hidden. Do not let this become a scandal. You think we are strict? You don't know what the world can do when it sees weakness. Meanwhile, Zoe felt the weight of the invisible chains surrounding their love. She knew that each text, each call, each meeting carried danger. She had never felt so alive, but never so terrified. Her heart ached for Min-Ho, for the pressure he carried, and for the love they could lose if the world discovered them. Days passed, filled with whispered conversations and secret rendezvous. Every stolen moment carried the thrill of rebellion and the fear of discovery. Zoe began to notice Min-Ho's hesitation in public, the careful avoidance of eye contact in crowded spaces. I hate this, Zoe whispered one night as they walked through a quiet park, the city lights reflecting off the Han River. I hate that we have to hide. Min-Ho took her hands in his, holding them tightly. I know, he said, but right now hiding keeps us safe, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect you. Even if it means pretending in public, even if it means lying. Zoe leaned her head against his shoulder. The warmth comforted her, but fear still pricked at the edges of her heart. Their love was real, undeniable, and worth fighting for. But now, more than ever, it teetered on the edge of danger. And as they stood together under the soft glow of the city lights, Zoe realized something chilling. Love alone might not be enough. They would need courage, cunning, and trust if they were going to survive the scrutiny, the judgment, and the shadow of Min-Ho's family. Because once the family test began, there was no turning back. Zoe stared at the plane ticket in her hand, a knot tightening in her stomach. The next morning, she would be flying back to the United States for a month-long project. The excitement of her career achievement was real, but the thought of being away from Min-Ho, even temporarily, filled her with anxiety. That evening, they met at their usual quiet cafe, a small corner where the world seemed to pause for them. Min-Ho looked different, less composed, more burdened. His hands fiddled nervously with the coffee cup, and his gaze kept drifting to the entrance as if expecting someone else to walk in. You seem worried, Zoe said softly, placing her hand over his. Min-Ho hesitated, then sighed. It's not you. It's everything else. My family, work, and now distance. I hate that we're going to be apart. Zoe forced a small smile. We'll manage. We've made it this far. A few weeks can't break us. He shook his head, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. It's not just the time apart. It's the things that can happen in that time, the misunderstandings, the assumptions. People will see things differently than we do. Zoe nodded slowly, understanding what he meant. She knew the scrutiny they were under was constant, and a single rumor could unravel the fragile threads of trust they had built. Within a week of returning to the U.S., Zoe's phone buzzed with a message from Min-Ho. Sorry I missed your call. Busy with family matters. Talk later. Zoe frowned. This wasn't unusual, but combined with the long hours of work she had been putting in, a small seed of doubt began to grow. Later that evening, Zoe scrolled through social media and noticed a picture of Min-Ho attending a dinner with colleagues and, to her surprise, standing close to a female coworker she didn't know. The post had a casual caption in Korean, something about a team celebration, but Zoe didn't understand the nuances of the language. Her heart sank. She tried to reach him immediately, but he didn't pick up. Hours later, she finally received a short message. "It's nothing, just a colleague. Don't worry." But worry had already taken root. Min-Ho, on the other side of the world, faced his own struggles. His family's pressure intensified. His father called repeatedly, asking why he hadn't been seen at several formal family gatherings. His mother subtly questioned his priorities, implying that his attachment to a foreign woman was a distraction. He felt torn. He wanted to reassure Zoe, to tell her everything, but every word had to be measured. One misstep could cause misunderstanding, and the last thing he wanted was for Zoe to feel neglected or undervalued. When they video chatted that weekend, the conversation was strained. "Why didn't you respond to my message?" Zoe asked, her tone sharper than intended. "I told you I was busy," Min-Ho replied, a trace of frustration in his voice. "I can't control every call. You know that." "I know. But it felt like you didn't care," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I do care," he said, his hand pressing against the camera as if trying to reach her through the screen. "Zoe, you have to understand. I'm trying. I'm balancing everything, and I hate that it's making you doubt us." Days stretched into a week, and the small misunderstandings piled up. Zoe caught herself overthinking every message, analyzing each word, and Min-Ho struggled to reassure her while keeping his family obligations intact. The physical distance magnified emotional distance. Late one night, Zoe sat by the window, looking out at the city lights and clutching her phone. "Can love survive this?" she whispered to herself. She remembered their stolen moments in Seoul, the laughter, the warmth, the thrill of a love that seemed destined, and wondered if it could endure the miles, the cultural pressures, and the constant scrutiny. Meanwhile, Min-Ho sat alone in his apartment, the city lights of Seoul stretching beneath him. He thought of Zoe's smile, her laugh, her stubborn courage, and felt both love and helplessness in equal measure. He knew he had to find a way to protect their love without sacrificing who he was, or letting fear dictate their future. Just when the tension seemed unbearable, Min-Ho sent Zoe a small video. It was simple. Him walking along the Han River at night, the lights reflecting on the water. He looked directly into the camera and whispered, "I miss you. I'm thinking of you every moment. Trust me, we'll get through this. I promise." Zoe watched the video on repeat, her anxiety easing slightly. She smiled through the tears, realizing that love wasn't just about being together physically. It was about trust, patience, and the willingness to fight for each other, even across continents. But doubt and distance were powerful adversaries, and both knew that the next challenge could either bring them closer or shatter everything they had fought for. The morning started like any other, but by noon, Zoe's phone began buzzing incessantly. Notifications flooded her social media accounts. Comments, tags, messages, from strangers, friends, and colleagues alike. Curiosity quickly turned to dread as she opened the source. A photo. There she was, smiling brightly at a cafe in Seoul. Min-Ho beside her, their hands almost touching. The picture, innocent in intent, had been shared by a mutual friend who had no idea of the storm it would unleash. The caption read, "Secret coffee date with someone special." Zoe's heart sank. She immediately called Min-Ho. "Zoe, I saw it," he said softly, tension threading his voice. "I didn't expect anyone to post that." The words felt like knives. Their private moments, carefully guarded against the judgment of the world, were now public. By evening, the consequences had begun to unfold. Min-Ho's family confronted him again, their disappointment palpable. His mother's eyes blazed with fury, while his father's silence was more terrifying than any words. "Min-Ho," his mother hissed, "do you understand what you've done? This will ruin everything. Our reputation, your future." "I can't undo it," he said quietly, though inside he felt the full weight of responsibility. "Zoe and we care for each other. I won't abandon that." Meanwhile, Zoe faced her own storm. Messages arrived from colleagues questioning her professionalism, friends expressing concern, and strangers posting assumptions about her relationship with Min-Ho. Some comments were cruel, some jealous, but all of them echoed in her mind. For the first time, fear crept in. A fear that love alone might not be enough to survive scrutiny from all sides. That evening, Zoe and Min-Ho met at a small park, hoping for privacy and calm. The city lights reflected off the river, shimmering like fragmented stars. But the beauty did little to soothe the anxiety in their hearts. "We have to make a choice," Min-Ho said, his voice steady but strained. "Do we fight, show the world we're together and risk everything? Or do we step back, hide, and protect ourselves?" Zoe stared at him, the weight of the decision pressing down. Fighting meant facing his family's wrath, public scrutiny, and potential professional fallout. Retreating meant sacrificing the freedom to love openly, and perhaps letting the world dictate the boundaries of their relationship. I don't want to hide," Zoe said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But what if it destroys you? Your career, your family, your life?" Min-Ho took a deep breath, his gaze steady. "Zoe, love is worth the risk, but we have to be smart. Reckless exposure will hurt both of us. I won't let anything happen to you or us without thinking it through." The next day, whispers had already spread through Min-Ho's professional circle. Colleagues approached him with veiled questions and pointed glances. Zoe noticed the tension in his posture in video calls, the subtle restraint in his tone. At the same time, family members were relentless. Min-Ho's younger sister texted, "Are you really willing to risk everything for her? Think carefully." The stakes had escalated beyond their private lives. This was now about identity, culture, and the expectations that had defined Min-Ho's existence. That night, Zoe and Min-Ho met one last time before he faced his family again. The park was empty, the quiet only broken by the occasional rustle of leaves. Zoe looked at him, determination blazing in her eyes. "Whatever happens," she said softly, "I'm not leaving. Not now, not ever. If we fight together." Min-Ho's eyes glistened, the weight of responsibility heavy but tempered by love. "Then we fight," he said, his voice steady. "We face them, the world, everything, together. No more hiding." They held hands, a simple gesture charged with courage and defiance. The city around them seemed to blur, leaving only the two of them and the unspoken vow they had made. The days that followed were tense. Min-Ho's family confronted him repeatedly, but he refused to relent. Zoe faced judgment from friends and colleagues, but found allies who supported her courage. Slowly, they carved a small space of their own, a bubble where love was allowed to exist, fragile but real. Every glance, every touch, and every whispered conversation became a quiet act of rebellion. The photo that had threatened to tear them apart instead became a turning point, a reminder that love, when true, demands courage. And as they walked hand in hand along the Han River one evening, Min-Ho whispered, "No matter what happens, Zoe, we'll survive this. Together." Zoe squeezed his hand, her heart racing. They had chosen love over fear, risk over safety, and in doing so had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. But in that choice, they found a bond stronger than doubt, stronger than distance, and stronger than the judgment of the world. Zoe stood at the balcony of her Seoul apartment, the evening breeze tugging at her hair. Below, the city lights reflected like molten gold across the Han River. She took a deep breath, trying to steady the mixture of excitement and nerves coursing through her. Tonight was different. Tonight, everything was about to change. Min-Ho appeared beside her, his presence steadying her heart. He wore a tailored suit, dark and elegant, the weight of their shared challenges reflected in the seriousness of his gaze. But there was something else too: hope, determination, and the quiet confidence of a man who had finally decided that love would not be silenced. "We've come a long way," Zoe whispered, her hand brushing his. "We have," Min-Ho replied, his voice low and tender. "And we're not done yet." The days leading up to this moment had been a whirlwind. After choosing to fight for their love openly, They faced scrutiny from both Korean and American friends, colleagues, and even the press. Rumors circulated, messages of judgment and disbelief arrived daily, and Min-Ho's family remained hesitant. But something had shifted. Seeing their unwavering commitment to each other had softened even the harshest critics. Min-Ho's parents had called a formal meeting at their home. A tense, polished room filled with the echoes of tradition and expectation. Zoe arrived, heart pounding, dressed in a flowing ivory dress that honored both her elegance and individuality. She stepped forward with Min-Ho at her side. Min-Ho's mother studied her, eyes sharp yet curious. His father's gaze was heavy but measured. Silence stretched, broken only by the sound of their footsteps on the polished wooden floor. Min-Ho took a deep breath. Mother, father, Zoe is the woman I love. Not a distraction. Not a complication. She is my choice. Zoe spoke next, her voice steady. I respect your family, your traditions, and everything you've built. I also love Min-Ho. I want to honor him and the family, but I cannot deny my heart. I am willing to embrace your culture, your values, and your expectations, because I want to be part of this family too. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, his mother's expression softened, a mixture of pride and understanding flickering in her eyes. His father remained silent for a heartbeat longer, then slowly nodded. You have courage, his mother said finally, and love like that cannot be ignored. If you can honor him, respect us, and walk this path together, then you may have our blessing. Tears pricked Zoe's eyes. She reached for Min-Ho's hand, squeezing it tightly. Weeks later, in the heart of Seoul, under the soft glow of lanterns and surrounded by cherry blossoms, Zoe and Min-Ho stood together, hand in hand, at the center of a beautiful courtyard. Guests from both their worlds gathered, family, friends, colleagues, and even those who had once doubted their love. Zoe's dress shimmered in the evening light, a blend of Western elegance and subtle Korean traditional accents. Min-Ho's hanbok-inspired suit was tailored to perfection, honoring his heritage. The ceremony began with soft music, a delicate blend of Korean instruments and Western harmonies. As they exchanged vows, their voices trembled with emotion. I promise to love you, to honor you, and to fight for us, no matter the world's obstacles. Min-Ho whispered, eyes locked on Zoe. And I promise to stand by you, to respect your world, and to love you across every border, distance, and challenge. Zoe replied, tears glistening. When they sealed their vows with a kiss, a wave of cheers erupted from the crowd. Cameras flashed, capturing a love that had defied expectations, cultures, and doubt. After the ceremony, both families mingled, laughter mingling with music. Old tensions gave way to understanding as parents shared stories, exchanged smiles, and welcomed Zoe fully into Min-Ho's world. Min-Ho's sister whispered apologies for her initial skepticism, while Zoe's friends embraced the warmth and respect of the Korean family. Zoe looked at Min-Ho, her heart full. We did it, she said softly. We did, he replied, pulling her close. And this is just the beginning. Under the starlit sky, in the heart of Seoul, their love stood strong, not just between the two of them, but uniting two families, two cultures, and two worlds. A love that had been tested by distance, doubt, and tradition had emerged victorious, proving that the boundaries of culture, expectation, and judgment could never constrain hearts destined to be together. As lanterns floated into the night sky, Zoe and Min-Ho held each other, knowing that while life would continue to challenge them, their love had already overcome the greatest obstacle, the world itself. Thanks for watching Folktales by Queen Dora. For more interesting stories, please click on the subscription button.